Have you ever wondered, what does it actually take to drag a car out of a paddock and get it back running and driving? Well, stick around, we're about to find out. Because this time on Backshed, this is my 1963 AP5 Valiant. Let's stop talking and get into it. So a few episodes ago, you saw me drag the AP5 out of a paddock in a small town in western New South Wales, and the rego label itself tells its own story. Last regoed, 12th month, 1985. So I'm not sure whether this engine's going to be good or bad, and I wasn't really that concerned because when you walk around the car, it was worth saving anyway. The further west you go into the centre of Australia, the drier and hotter it gets. And so you see along the bottoms of the doors and the sills, they're surface rusty and shitty, but they're not rotted out. It's fairly thin there, I get that. But these old girls, or anything of this age these days, it's getting harder and harder to find that aren't just rotted out. Even the quarter panels, pretty good, very thin there. Part of the exhaust that was wrapped around the diff. But just not rotted out. Like an old NRMA label, I think. Is that what that is? Bit of damage up the front, but still worth saving. And I've never had one of these, and the engine on this is a 225 cubic inch slant motor, and I've never had one of them either. I actually know nothing about them, but I do know they've got a reputation for reliability. I'm not necessarily after reliable, just after running. But like I said, I'm not that concerned. Even if this motor's no good, this car is good enough to try and save anyway, even if it takes an engine swap. So like I say, 225 cubic inch slant. You can see the block slants down that way. I'm told it's because they're a very tall motor and they lent them over so they'd clear the hood. And like I said, I'm no expert on these. I actually know nothing about them. But there's the model number on him. And I'm told the AP stands for Australian Production. And I think if you're watching from the States, this would look a lot like your Plymouth Valiant. I actually think they share the same sheet metal. Well, at least at the front anyway. And there's the only other plate I can find. You Valiant guys will be able to tell me what all that means. But she's very complete. Complete with hornet's nests and mouse or small rat's nests. The hornet nest there. Anyway, I guess I'll see where we get. That battery tray's a little bit shit, but I can live with that. Having the air cleaner and carburetor still there is a good thing. And I like the idea of these long intake runners. Hopefully moisture hasn't travelled into the cylinder on that. Now there's nothing really pretty going on in that engine bay, but I saw two things that give me a little bit of confidence. And no, it wasn't rat turds and hornets' nests. It's these. There's not too much comforting down here, except There's number one plug lead, and the coil is way down there, not connected to anything. And this, that's a, well, it used to be a clear plastic hose. It's now a dry, brittle brown hose, but it's connected to the fuel pump. So how does that give me confidence that number one plug lead's off and there's a hose on the fuel pump? Is because you're not looking for spark and trying to add fuel if it's locked up. This thing's going to turn over, I'll virtually guarantee it. Sometime between 1985 and now, somebody's had a go at getting this running. I guess we've just got to figure out why. Anyway, let's stop talking, let's get into it. It's either got no crank bolt or that's full of dirt, or another hornet's nest. You Valiant guys, do these have a crank bolt? Because if they do, that one's covered in hornets. Well, their nest. But, oh yeah. If you watch the balancer there, if you just put enough pressure on that fan belt, oh, it takes a bit of going, but it goes. How about like the other way? No, so it'll go anti-clockwise, but I can't get enough pressure on the belt to go clockwise. That's alright, one way is good enough for me. Yeah, it's definitely moving. And like I say, you're not going to be adding fuel or trying to add fuel or looking for spark if it didn't turn over. Oh, have a look at this though, that's not great. Look there, that's a hole in the thermostat housing. That isn't great. Oh, and there on the water pump too. Look at that, that's a crack. That's corroded from the inside out, but that's alright. We just won't run it long. If it's turned over one way, it might just be trying to build compression coming this way, or maybe I just can't get enough pressure on that belt to go clockwise. But I'll throw a battery in it, see if we've got some dash lights or something, see if we've got some power somewhere, and go from there. I won't muck about with this one. I'm not going to knock plugs out or anything like that just yet. If I can get it to wind, I won't do it at all. But so anyway, we'll see if we've got power. I'll chuck a battery in. So as I say, my confidence is quite high on this one because somebody's been in here, so it's turned over. Although, why'd they give up? Maybe my confidence shouldn't be so high. That's not going to fit on there. Oh, maybe. I'll get a hammer. Might start a list. New battery terminal. It's cracked right through there. Anyway, that's good enough for now. And she's really complete inside. That door trim's seen better days, a bit of moisture and whatever. And it was obviously home for some sort of animal for a long time. But really complete in here. Shitty, but complete. There's the headlight rims off the front. They'll come in handy. And like I say, just not rotted out. Really clean. Well, it will be clean. Once we clean it, it'll be clean, but really rust free. And you can't always find them rust free. I know I've had a run of them, been pretty rust free. But if you're wanting to see some rust done, we've got a couple coming up that are really, really rusty. This one's kind of smelly, but not rusty. Oh, there's the old one. There's the damaged one. So they've obviously, well, somebody's given a shit because there's new headlight rings in the front to replace that one. And all the wheel trims are still here. Which, oh, they're different. That's two different styles. Doesn't matter. That seat's half out. Anyway, we'll see if we got some power. Oh, it's even got a voltmeter. Wouldn't you know it? What's going on there? Well, there's power getting here somewhere. Because look at that. The temp and the fuel gauge are jumping around like crazy. But ironically, the only one that's not moving is the volts. I wonder if we got any lights. No. And, oh, well, no, that one's not going to work. No. No. But I can't smell anything burning just yet, and that's with the key on. Look at that needle jumping around. That's... No, nothing. But that could only be a bad earth. That could just be bad contact here, or maybe bad grounding, although that looks new, so they've had a fair go at it. But it goes down into all that muck down there. Well, it's telling me it's grounded, but I mean, it could be grounding from somewhere else, but essentially that's on the positive, and I'm just touching the bolt that cable goes to, and then somewhere else in the block, and the light's coming on. It's coming on. And I'll do it the other way around. I'll go negative to the starter post, and that's on as well, so we should have power there. There's got to be power going somewhere, because you can see the needle jumping around when I'm trying to roll it on, so it's drain of some description. So how about I quit stuffing about with that, and I'll give this starter a tap. I know tapping the starter might seem like, what does that do? But sometimes from sitting, all they do need, see, there's carbon brushes in this guy, and the carbon builds up and sometimes loses contact from sitting, builds up a bit of corrosion. So if I can actually hit it. Alright, see if that makes any difference. At least I got a click out of it that time. The two different noises you're going to hear. If you hear something sounds like it's spinning, but that's all it does. That'll be the solenoid stuck, not pulling in to engage the gear. Or if you hear it clicking and no spinning, that's the solenoid pulling, but the starter not spinning. So I'm going to put a bit more attention on that starter body, on the end of it. Maybe I should try a bit more solid hammer. Get off. No, I'll just persevere. Righto, go again. So I turned over, but really, really slowly, but we'll give her a chance. 1985 was a long time ago. I might knock those plugs out, put a little bit of WD down it, and just see if we can roll it over. It might only be rolling over slow because the starter, like I said, built up with carbon and stuff. So we'll give it a chance to try and speed up turning over. Plugs out, tiny bit of WD. I'm not going to drown the cylinders because I don't want it to, I don't know, choke them up when they actually try to fire once we get sparks. So just a little bit of WD. Let's stop talking. Let's do that. Plugs out, WD. I'm just going to label the plugs as I take them off. Well, leads. And I think before, I think I went, oh, number one leads off, but that's not. That's the coil lead. But number one lead is off because I could see number one plugs. I knew it was off, but it's just further down in mice infested engine bay. So I'll label these so that I can take the firing order out of the equation if it's correct, because if you remember, go back to the Corolla episode, we got that one to run, but they had the firing order ass about face, like wrong. I'll worry about firing order once it fires. This is just so I can jam them back on and not have to think. I might take that pipe out of the way a bit. I'm thinking way too far ahead on this one, but I've had, geez, I'm knocking shit over everywhere. I'm thinking way too far ahead on this one, but the last few ones we've had, fuel tanks have been a real issue. I know, because I googled it, that I can get a fuel tank for this. So that's another thing that will go on the list. Battery clamp, fuel tank, water neck, water pump, maybe a coil. So AP5-2-4916. You Valiant blokes, is it 63? I was told it was. Because the wipers, see the wipers, they're back to front for here in Australia. The wipers in Australia, if your driver's side's this side, they'll usually come this way. Well, they don't. They're that way. I'm told that changed to late 63, so I think it's an early 63. Tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I haven't had one of these. Anyway, stop talking, get the plugs out. That'll be another telltale sign, as if these plugs are new or if they're shitty and old. Like, how far did they actually go? How hard did they try? There's another big hornet's nest there. Geez, that's the mothership. That's a monster. She's like Mother Nature, this one. She's full of animals. I suppose you're in the paddock. Something's gonna take shelter. Well, that's a really old Champion plug. But I can tell you, when she was running okay. That isn't bad at all, but she's a very old Champion. Well, they weren't super hard to undo, which I don't know if that's a positive or a negative. You generally find if somebody's putting plugs in them, they torque them down that hard they nearly shit their pants. So I'm going to take it as a positive. Maybe these were put in a long time ago. Same plug, that's a good sign, and it looks the same too. It's when they're odd plugs I start to worry. It's, you know, trying to let's see better days. When it's odd plugs, I tend to worry a bit, because were they chasing a dead cylinder? Is that why it was parked? I guess we'll find out. I think being on a bit of a slant's helped this thing. There's no moisture in the plug holes. I hope it's helped that intake. All the exhaust is on back to middle of the car. So it's, the longer it is, the harder moisture is to travel up it. That one's a little bit blacker, but it's the same plug again. Well, it's half an exhaust, the rest of it was wrapped around the diff. I'd say she might have got dragged around a bit at the farm. Moved from time to time, probably in a very agricultural manner. Tractor, bobcat. We actually put it on with a bobcat. This thing would never want to see another bobcat in its life. Got loaded with a bobcat, got unloaded with a bobcat. We'll fix that today. I've only got one black plug, like, look at that. Where's the camera? It's quite clean. One's a bit dark. Yep, good again. Good girl. I shouldn't call this one girl because every time I've been talking to this car as I walk past, I've been calling it old timer. Not long now, old timer. Today's the day, old timer. So maybe this is old timer. I like the old sun visor. I think the old timer thing came from the Rego label. I could just picture some older guy. It's good too. I could just picture some older guy driving into the hay shed, shutting the door. Alright, stop talking. I'm not going to go too crazy with the WD because if I wet it down too much, it's just going to impede spark when I go to fire it. So I just want enough just so I can lube those cylinders. I'll give that another wind and I'll see if it's gonna wind faster, right? Because it's got no compression now, so it should wind faster. But I want that starter just to free up a bit too. So here we go. What's that noise? Oh, just the earth terminal hitting the fan. Terminal lead. I know what I meant. I think that squealing is that pump. I reckon that pump internally would just be corroded as shit. Remember that bit's broken away. That won't be great, but that's winding a bit better. Of course it's going to wind faster. It's got no plugs in it. Righto. Let's find some coil wiring. Find that. I'm not going to dick about with that coil. I'm going to say it's off for a reason. So I'll set that one to a side, and I've got this little fella. It was on my shelf, which is it on the shelf and out of the car because it doesn't work? I don't know. I don't tend to forget why it's there. But we'll check for spark, huh? Get in. And there's a negative. So negative from the distributor. Go there. Oh, I just dropped that. And it's tiny. Success, found it. So I got that hooked in. That wire's on, although it did look like it was the wrong one because they're both blue, but it seems okay. I might see if we've got power at that wire, because if we've got no positive to that wire, we've got no power, it's not going to do anything. So multimeter. Key on. Nope. Okay, so I found a really good place to start because we've got no voltage there. That'll do it. Let's find some voltage. Just wire wheel. see what we've got now. Oh yeah, good volts now. We don't have 12, but I don't reckon we should have. This is going to have, this is old enough, it's going to have a resistor, and looks like a ballast resistor over there, so I'm happy with any volts at this point, and that's got 8.99. 10 now, jumping around, but it's got some. So I'll connect that back up. I might clean that too. And if I get nothing, I'll change that coil, because I don't know if it's any good. Should I test the old one? I don't mean test it with a multimeter like clever people do. I don't know what ohms range it should be. I just meant to see if I can get spark at the end of the lead. You know, like simple people. We'll see now. Key on. I'm gonna piss that coil off. Makes me want to try that old one. Alright, so we've got this one I found on the shelf. Used with resistor. Well, we've got that. I'm sure we do. Is that the issue? Let me clean that. And I'll need those. Where'd I put the old coil? This is, I can't even see a hole where that coil should be mounted. Mind you, I reckon it's there, but there's another massive hornet's nest. Like full fist size hornet's nest. Imagine the hornets. I'm sure we put our house here somewhere, drag it out of the farm, take it away, and they're like, where'd our house go? I'm sure I left my Valiant here somewhere. Alright, we'll give that a go. Power on. Oh, check this out. Have a look at this. So all this is, right, is the negative comes from the distributor I've got on the negative side of the coil. Clearly, the positive comes from this wiring harness. It was the only one hanging down there, and it had the little, you know, clip that looked like it went to the coil. So that's the positive wire there. We've got, I don't know, 8, 9-ish volts there. I've got the coil wire in the coil. Power in, negative earth. Coil power should come out. So if you put that near somewhere metal and wind the key, as the point's closed, the power should be dropped. Knocking plugs over everywhere. So as I hit the key, the power should be coming out that lead, and if I've got that grounded, we should see spark. And I tried to get that further and further away, so hopefully you could see that. But there's a nice big bright spark jumping across there, so that's obviously a good coil. The points are working, so I'm not even going to lift the lid on that. And those two were probably the culprits. So we've got a big bright spark there, so she's got me interested now. But I honestly cannot see where that coil mounts. So what I might do is knock the plugs back in, and we might give him a bit of a wash off. Clean up here so I can see what's going on. I'm going to have a crack at this. I'm putting these plugs back in going, well, if you've got spark and you've just put the plugs back in, all you've got to do is add fuel. I'll worry about mounting that coil after. I just got to throw some fuel at it. If it barks, mate, I'm going to be washing this thing down so quickly, getting that mounted and moving on. Now, unlike a few episodes ago in the Falcon Ute, where I got it to wind over and then checked the oil and found I had none, I checked the oil. It's got some. It's very black, but it's there. So, and this is what I mean about labelling your leads. Sometimes when they're really crispy, you sort of can't go wrong, but these have been replaced at some stage. So I need number 5, 4, there's something crunchy in that one. Come back out. I'll just check the end of that lead. That sounded really crunchy. Well, she's all there. So I've disconnected the fuel line. You know, it's probably dry, but just in case, and I'll put a bit more in the bowl. A little bit down the straight. Anyway, we'll just see if he barks. That would have let it in. Jeez, it's slow. It's so slow to wind. I might just knock that plug out and just make sure we can have power the way we had it before, but if the rotor button isn't being very touchy-feely on the cap, we could have nothing on a plug. So let's check a plug. I'll check it at number 2 because it's easy to get at. Kind of real when the sun's out. So if I now put that plug back in that lead like that, and I ground him to something metal where we can all see, like that, let's see if that sparks. No is the answer, so maybe we do have to go in and have a fiddle with the points. I just assumed the points were good because when we had spark there before from the coil, it was intermittent, which that is the points opening and shutting. So maybe it's not the points, maybe the rotor button. Let's have a look. So I'll get this cap off. It is way down there. Like way down there. God, there's barely any gap in that. Just watch that points gap, it's so tiny. I'll just put a little bit more gap in them and just give them a little bit of a sand, see if we can't get them to crack. As far as gap goes, used to hear older guys say a cigarette box paper. You know, in the old tally hose, you get a cigarette paper out and the box lid, or a matchbox, the old flip lid matchbox, that's roughly a gap. These days, grab your credit card, something like that. They all vary slightly, but that'll do. I'm just going to get a little bit of sandpaper that's doubled over and run it across him before I worry about gapping them. If I sand them long enough, it's re-gapping them, isn't it? Let's have a go. Before I touch the gap, righto. So I'll give them another sand. Gap's a little wider. I can smell something getting hot. But the key's off. The starter's not hot. I can definitely smell something though. Right, so I still got power there. I've got the light connected to me positive. See if the distributor body's earth, then it is. But I've got nothing coming out of me negative. And now I've got nothing there. So where's my big beautiful spark gone? So if I've got nothing at the negative side of the coil now, turn that key off. We'll go back to there. I'll go back. Take a backward step. It's pretty common with cars. As long as it's 2 forward, 1 back, not 2 back. Oop, another 1 back. Keep going back. Then 1 forward. Power off, so power back on. And I've got ground at the distributor. So, okay, so what that's telling me now is the distributor's got ground. The body of the distributor is grounded. So when I've got my positive there, volts are, keys on, volts are there, touch the body of the distributor, I've got, it's grounded. But when I touch the wire leaving the distributor, at that end and at this end, I've got nothing. So all that's telling me is the contact of that wire to the body of the distributor is the issue. The infamous point strike again. Have a look at this. I jumped the gun when I said the points were okay. If you can see down there, keys on, so if I ground to, that's to the body of the distributor, there's my light. That's to the body of the points, which is grounded to the body of the distributor, there's my light. Now those points are shut, right? So I should have ground on this side and nothing. So I'm going to vigorously sand there, but if that's not the case, then that strap there is the issue. So I'm going to sand that again, but I think they're contacting. I can smell that smell again. I can smell something burning again. That's a different. I can't smell burning in there. The only thing I can smell burning in there is my nostrils. So I'm going to blame the points for now, and I'm just going to sand them really nastily for a second. I shouldn't have assumed that the points are okay when I saw my big spark from my coil coming and going. I shouldn't have assumed. I did though, because that's what would make it intermittent. They were grounding. Both sides of the points have now got ground. sounds like I'm going to start needing a charger soon too. So if I put that test light on the post, leaving the distributor now. Okay, so now the post leaving the distributor now has the light illuminated every time the point's shut. Alright, so I'll check my test light to the top of me negative now. It's not bright, but it's there, so let's go again. Put it under my coil. Distributor back on. Coil back on, distributor back on. Number 2, lead. Let's check for spark again. Clean it, come on. Get your shit together. I'm going to use that like I did before because I can't reach there properly. Oh yeah. See, a little spark there. That'll do. So we've got spark, but that battery's had enough winding. So I think, and I can't find the hole for that bracket, the coil bracket. So I'll chuck a tiny bit of fuel down it, and if I can't get it to bark, I'll whack that battery on charge, we'll get a wash down, get that mounted, and then we'll have a go once it's charged. But for now, I suppose I could get something to jump it off, get the old truck over here. Alright, move your shit. We've now got spark. And we've now got fuel. I reckon it's going to go, it's just so slow. Maybe I should hold that open and get a bit in the intake manifold. If I get a little bit of a pool of fuel in the intake, hopefully it'll draw a bit of vapour through. Ooh. Come on. I'd have to get something to jump it off. That would have been good, wouldn't it? Red goes to black, black goes to red. Why won't that work? Did you hear it pop out the exhaust then before? That'll probably be an exhaust valve stuck open. Come on, baby. I'm gonna go a little bit of green 2-stroke. I'm gonna put heaps to either one, get it to bark, or 2, flood it. A lot of smoke here. It's hot, but check this out. Gonna ignore it, but again, I don't think it's winding fast enough. Let's do that. That blow by looked pretty bad. Oh, I can't get to those bolts. Righto. Pause. I'm gonna wash it down. I'm gonna wash this engine bay down. I can't find the coil bracket mount. I can't get to the rocket cover bolts. It's making my soul cry. I'll give it a couple more goes first though. I'll bring something else over. I'll bring the truck over and get it running. Hopefully the alternator will give that more than just that spare battery, and we'll just see if we can't get him winding faster, get those valves happening. So I've got him hooked up and I was going to bring my truck over, but it's pretty loud so you wouldn't hear anything. So I've got Rosa. It's a little Daihatsu for Rosa I bought for my kids to learn to drive in because he's manual with low range. So you pop it in for low and don't worry about the hubs. Whack it in first and they don't even have to use the accelerator. They can just pop the clutch and get the idea of the clutch, and then we'll use 2 high and start using the throttle later. Just give them the idea. It's important to me they learn to drive manual. And it's only a little battery, but he's running off the alternator, so I'll just check the voltage we're getting here, and hopefully Rose's little alternator will just get him winding quick enough that we'll get him going. Negative hitting the fan again. It did pop once. Okay, so we're getting there. I'm either gonna get it to pop and fart or I'm gonna drown it, one of the two. Okay, we've had to pop out the exhaust. Did hear one little bark, not really. It's winding over a K, but it's still not enough. Battery out, put it on charge. I'm going to get this washed down and get these rocket cover bolts off. And I don't know if you can hear me because of Rosa. So what I'll do is disconnect that and try to do that bit again, maybe. So it's not a bad start. It's not great, but it's not bad. But I'm to the point where I need to get that cover off, and I can't even see the bolts. They're deep under rat turds, no doubt, and dust and whatever else. So at this point, air cleaner's back on, and I'm gonna knock the wheels off and get up on jack stands because I don't have any wheels for this thing. So even if I get it to run, I can't move it. So up on stands, wheels off. I'll get the tires off any way I can and get those wheels maybe painted and then sent to get some tires on them. Because these wheels caught me out a little bit. I was trying to get off the trailer when I was bringing it home thinking Valiant, same stud pattern as Ford, but no, early Valiant is not. Early Valiant's a lot smaller. And thanks for all the messages reminding me these are left-hand thread. These older Valiants, Plymouths, Dodges in the States as well, the left-hand side of the car has got a left-hand thread wheel studs. Now, I vaguely knew that, but didn't know what models, whatever, so I would have messed that up. And in actual fact, a friend of mine messaged me and said they'll have a stamp in the end of the stud with an L, and they do. So anyway, stop talking, let's get these wheels off, get him up, get him washed. And oh, the theory of what I want to do with get the rocket cover off is we've got spark, we've got a lot of fuel. I put enough down that to drown it. I was just hoping it might pop once or twice, and I did hear a backfire, and then there was also a bit of a jump there as well. But the only thing we're missing is compression. So the plan is tap the top of the valves, because if they're sticking and not quite sitting on their seat, no compression. The other thing is just get it to wind faster in the hope that it'll build more compression that way. Even if the motor is really low compression, if I can just get it to wind over a bit quicker. If you've ever seen a compression gauge or a compression tester, you wind it over, it'll build and build and build. I'm just in the hope that winding it faster will build a little bit more compression and just get a couple of cylinders to pop off, and then the heat will do the rest. It'll start the fire. So anyway, stop talking, let's get into it. And so here's what I'm saying about the wheel studs. If you see there, where's a good one? There, a little L stamped in them, just to indicate that it's a left hand thread. So they're righty loosey, not righty tighty, and so you don't want to mix them up. And we're missing one there, which I might have a look in the boot later and see if it's there. But for now, we'll get them off, get him up on stands and wash down that engine bay. So at least now I can see where these rocket cover bolts are. We can get them out. And I just took the distributor cap off and all the leads and just put a plastic bag over it. So hopefully not too much water went down in that guy. And that's going to take 4 or 5 good washes. The block is that filthy. It's obviously had an oil leak and the dust is just built up and then soaked in oil and built up. It's thick. I ripped at that pretty hard, and it's got a lot of crap out from around the engine bay, but that block is just covered in it. Righto. What do you reckon this will look like? Terrible, I'd say. Yep, just looking at that, it's going to be fucking terrible. Ah. Well, in the cover's a bit like a baking tray, but that's not that bad. Like, not at all. Oh. Do you reckon we've got some stuck valves or what? What do you reckon of those two? I wonder if we've now got some bent push rods to go with it. No. No is the answer to that question. Oh look, that is like still open. Let me show you. This is the perfect. If ever I was going to show you some stuck valves, check it out. So you've heard people say about stuck valves, and I took that rocket cover off and went, what's going on there? That's the end of a push rod. What's the end of that one doing there? That's what they're doing. They've dislodged because, see that end of that ball there should sit in that cup, but they've dislodged because look at the height of that valve. Can you see that? That is literally 10 mil open. That valve is open and that valve is open, which has created enough clearance for this to slide. It slides completely underneath that push rod without touching. It should be up there. See the gap there now? So that valve is completely stuck open. That valve is completely stuck open. And well, they're compressed. Doesn't mean they're stuck. But for now, let's get them unstuck. I just hope the piston traveling hasn't tried to shut that, and now that's why it won't stick, because that would be shithouse. That would be really shithouse, actually. Right, let's stop talking and see what happened. Just gonna go along and WD all the stems in the hope that if the guides do leak a little, hopefully the WD will go down that valve, especially these two, and just free them up a little. And then I'm just going to tap on the end of them. Probably initially I'll just move that to a side so I can get a good swing at them. Very convenient, isn't it? Just moving to a side. And just tap on the heads of them just with a dead blow hammer. And just see if I can't work them back up. Oh, see that? Second hit. The downside is now, to get the push rod back under, I've got to compress that valve, but that shouldn't be too hard. Famous last words. Oh, jeez. Oh, a little bit more. Gonna have to get more weight on him. Stop dicking about, get into it. This one. Oh, geez, that is sticky. Well, duh, you just said it was a stuck valve. That doesn't mean it's slippery, does it? Hang on. The other way. The other way. Now let's go. Let's get that guy under there. Oh, got him. Oh, that one's actually partially open. That's why that one was so hard to get under. Yeah, so if you saw, they were stuck down a solid 10 mil, just couldn't quite come shut. WD, if it leaks down past the guide, give it a hit. And I'm just going to go along. So that had stopped those two compressing. So essentially, two cylinders completely out. Give them all a bit of a smack. You can generally hear if they're stuck too. Right, I'll put the battery back in it and just crank it over, and these couple that are depressed, I'll let them come up and we'll just cycle them through. Keep checking if any of them got a lot of play in it. I'll get the battery. I might crack the oil sender, because have a look at this filter. That oil filter is that old that it's got no paint left on it, so I might actually crack that. Just make a leak essentially, and see if anything's coming out it while I wind on this again. So I'll pop that back off, and I've actually taken that oil pressure sender, completely out. So I'll add a little bit of fuel, but I'll just wind it gently, because if it does have pressure, I'm going to get oil going everywhere. Actually, I might hold off on the fuel for just a second. That didn't sound great. Ooh, or did it? Got oil. Oh, far out, got a lot of oil. It's got oil pressure, so if I can get it to fire, at least we know we can put in an oil filter, some fresh oil in it. And we should get something at the top of the motor, but for now, it didn't sound great. I thought it locked up, but no, maybe that's just hitting against a bit of compression. Now it's got some shut valves. Long spanner. Come on. No, that didn't sound good. Let's get my truck. Let's get some more volts. So with my truck connected now, hopefully I'll be able to get this thing to wind a bit quicker. Hopefully that clunking was only the piston hitting against some spark and wanting to stop the poor little old starter motor. Starter's really not happy, as you wouldn't be. Oh, Jesus. Thought it had me then. It's not hot. Just wait. Just to give it a bit more of a solid blow. If you can hear it sound like it was spinning but not engaging, that's the solenoid. Come on, old timer. Come on. Here we go. I'm sort of hoping that horrible noise was just that water pump. I might cut that bell. Actually, I won't cut it. I'll just take it off for now. Hopefully that noise will go away. We'll see. definitely the noise, but get some right down into that manifold again. See if that starter's getting hot. Yeah, I might just let that cool down for a second. She's working pretty hard. Come on, come on. Starter's cooking. So I just put a wet rag just to cool the end of the starter down. Right on the tip there's a bearing and it's quite warm, and I'll just leave that charging for a second. But that actually, I won't say it ran, it actually fired for a sec, so we're getting there. It didn't sound like it had any more than 2 cylinders, but it's a start. 2's okay, so I'll let that cool down and we'll go again. So I've just gone back to basics again and I've pulled all the plugs, because what I'm thinking is it's now acting like it doesn't have spark. It's got a ton of fuel. I've probably drowned the thing, but it should be at least coughing and spluttering. And I'm wondering, when I was pressure cleaning, am I getting a little bit of water just sitting in the pockets of those cups? They're pretty flat, but they could hold a little bit of water, because I'm pulling the plug out on the lead, putting it there, and I've got spark. But when I put them back in, they're acting like I've got no spark. So back to the start, I'll put a little bit of WD down it, roll it over with no plugs, flush it out. If there was any water sitting in there, I'll mop it up with the rag, and we'll have another go. I can hear the spark cracking. Like, I can hear them cracking. You probably can't hear me because of that truck behind you, but I can hear them. Plugs back in. So I just switch my truck off for a second. I don't think voltage is now our issue. And I'll just go back in case you couldn't hear me, but I reckon pressure cleaned it. Maybe there was a little bit of moisture in those cups, which was stopping my plug grounding to the block, which in turn stops spark. So back to basics, pulled them out, mopped up the cups. But when I was winding it with no plugs in it, I could hear the plug leads cracking. Like one sitting against the block there, you could hear it cracking. So we still got spark there. So we should have good spark now, not just spark. We should have good spark back. I've seen motors that you can just about submerge and still run, and then all of a sudden you'll get one that 2 spots of rain on the road and it doesn't want to run. Generally it's moisture in the distributor cap, but I'm wondering if, you know what I mean, just a little bit of water sitting in that bottom of those spark plug cups. You know, power's lazy. It'll take the cheapest, the easiest route it can. So if it's arcing through the water, it won't fire the plug. I'll probably say all that, and it'll make no difference. But I guess I'll find out. Oh, I'll start my truck. I've got oil now. There's oil everywhere. Come on. I'm taking that as a victory. She's going to run. She's very chattery and only about 3 cylinders, but come on, one more go for me. And then we've got to do something with that cooling system. I've got oil almost at every rocker now. Trying to fill that bowl. Alright, so I'm at the point now where I'm confident enough to start writing a list on this thing, because that starter's dying, and it should. It's probably done more than its fair share of work. The water pump's buggered, the water neck, the carby needs rebuilding, and I do think a constant stream of fuel, an evenly metered constant stream of fuel, is the only thing stopping that thing running for any period of time. That sounded like it was going to run. Not well, not on all cylinders, but I'm not after too much from her. Not just yet. So tonight, I'll see if I can get a water pump on order, a neck, the starter, a rocket cover gasket, and that'll be a good start. And then we'll start writing down some other stuff that we know it's going to need. Stuff that I know I can't get overnight, like a fuel tank, fuel pump. Righto, it's going well. So I'm going to jot down a bit of a list. I'll make a now list, because it's late in the day and it's borderline too late to order anything. So when I say I'm going to get something overnight, it's probably not over tonight. It'll be order it in the morning, get it over that night. So, but tomorrow I've got plenty to do. So a starter, rocker gasket, water pump, thermostat housing or water neck, oil filter, carby kit. I should say fan belts and hoses, but I'll put that on the later list. Oh, fuel tank, and the reason I say fuel tank, I've had a heap of trouble with fuel tanks lately. I've had a run of tanks I just couldn't get. I know I can get a tank for this. I googled it. Maybe it's because of the Plymouth Valiants and that in the States, I don't know. Very similar, same, don't know, but I can get one. So fuel tank and sender. I just crossed an L, filt tank. At no stage did I say I was smart. Tomorrow we might put some fluid in that master. It's bone dry, but clean. I'll show you. So I was surprised, I just lifted the lid earlier. Look at that, it's pretty clean. It's not full of rust. So I'm going to put some fluid in that tomorrow. No, I don't think it'll work. However, it'll tell me, I'll crack all the lines at the wheel cylinders and it'll tell me if the wheel cylinders, well no, it'll tell me if the lines aren't blocked or are blocked, and then I'll worry about wheel cylinders. So I'll put the wheel cylinders on the list as well. It's bound to need them. Wheel cylinders. I think I might have to go and get some brain food, sit down and have a think, because I'm bound to have missed something. I put fuel pump. Fuel pump. Getting there. Battery clamp. I'll let that alternator tell me if it's good, bad or indifferent, but it doesn't look like the original. I don't think. Is that what the original looked like? You Valiant guys? Plymouth guys? Like I say, there's a fair few things there, and tomorrow I've got heaps to go on with, even if I'm ordering these in the morning. It's a bit late now. I want to get those rims, sorry, I want to get the tyres. Oh, tyres. So I want to get the tyres off those rims. I don't think I'll get them sandblasted because that's going to take too long, so we'll just sand them and paint them. That way when the tyres turn up, they're ready to go back together straight away. And strip it out. I literally want to strip everything out of it, and as sick and wrong as it sounds, I actually enjoy that sort of shit. Stripping them out, getting them back to the basics, and just pressure clean everything. I'll probably spend most of the day and probably do it 2 or 3 times. Once the seats and all the garbage and all the junk's out, it's just smash it with the pressure cleaner. Inside and out. Go over that engine bay again. And so I won't actually need any of this tomorrow. We'll just strip and clean. Anyway, that might do us for today. The kids want to have a little drive in Rosa now that I've been using her as a jump starter pack, and I'll see you in the morning. So first thing this morning, it's get these tyres off those rims. One way or another, I'm gonna get these off. Some don't look like they'll be so hard. They're already kind of off the bead. Those ones, I'm probably going to invent some new words. Anyway, I'll get some levers. Even if I've got to cut the tyre with the grinder to get them off, I'll get them off one way or another. Alright, let's get into that. So wheels are painted, and while I've got my spare set of hands that's eager to help out, we've got to get into this. Unfortunately, tearing all this out. How cool are these old type of dashes? But all this has got to come out. I'm going to take trims off, seat out, all those disgusting mats out. And then really get stuck in with the pressure cleaner. I want to do inside the doors, everywhere. That hood liner is actually pretty bloody good. And that is not so bloody good. Anyway. So I'll start ripping everything out and then break out the pressure cleaner. So I just pulled the rubber floor matting out, and we found why she held so much moisture and rotted the floors. It's got really thick. I assume that's factory underlay, maybe, I don't know, but it's held the moisture, and that's pretty much scale rust. So we're gonna have to put a full floor through it, I think, back into there. That's just, yeah, it's paper thin. So we'll put some floors in this one. We're getting there though. I'll get the dustpan and broom, sweep him up, and then we'll start pressure cleaning. So you Mopar and Valiant guys, tell me, is that tape on the bottom of the door factory? Because if it is, it's been on every door, and if it is factory, I don't reckon those trims have ever been off. Not one of the clips broke. It's going back in. The front driver's side's a bit worse for wear, but again, has that trim ever been off? Plenty of ants though. Anyway, the other side, the plastic was really bad, so unfortunately I'm going to pull all that plastic off. But you know what, I don't feel like I'm deteriorating the car. I'm actually going to bring it back to life. Sorry ants. I do want to wash out in the bottom of that door, because if you can see, she's full of dust and dirt and dust and debris, so we'll get all that out. And it's cleaned up pretty good. It will need floors, like I said. Awesome day, really. And I know there was a lot of time lapse there, but literally it was just undoing seat bolts, undoing seatbelt bolts, you know, cleaning everything out of the boot and that sort of thing. And of course, getting those tyres off the rims. That was a bit of a challenge, but I did have my little helper there, and he went hard today. His wheels, probably, well, the two wheels that he did, are probably better than the two that I did. He ripped right in. And then helping me clean the car out, I enjoyed that. I did have to say at one point, have a rest, mate, while I sweep out this. I didn't think he needed to go through that, but the minute I had all the mouse crap and ants swept up, he was straight back in there pulling drain plugs out. I'm not going to knock back that sort of help. Anyway, tomorrow's another day. I thought I'd be on the pressure cleaner by now, but time did slip away. So I'll probably spend most of tomorrow on the pressure cleaner, inside, out, and then the bit I'm really looking forward to is Scotch Brite all the oxidization off the paint. Really get into scrubbing the outside of it and see what we've got on the outside. And the floor, I get why that's rusted out. That heavy underlay, the minute that would have got moisture in it, it would have just stayed in there forever and a day. So, and that's really the only rusty part of that car. But at least you'll get to see floor pans go in. I did get a heap of stuff ordered. Hopefully some of it's here tomorrow, including the tyres. I really want the tyres here. That's why I persevered so hard with those rims. I know I could have tried to take it to a tyre shop, but no, I couldn't. It's Sunday, so I just persevered. Anyway, that's probably it for now. I'll stop talking. I'll see you in the morning. So there's plenty to do today with all the parts on order. The first thing I want to do is get this carburetor off. The carby kit should be here this afternoon, and hopefully some tyres, and we might be able to get him rolling. So I'll get the air cleaner off, start pulling that carby, and I'm just going to soak it in some fuel so that when I strip it down later this afternoon, everything's soft and we can clean out all those little idle ports and things like that. And that'll be a good job for this afternoon. Just start stripping the carby down. We'll be pressure cleaning for most of today, I would imagine. Inside really needs to be hammered. It's pretty disgusting. And look at that hornet's nest. They do seem to get in everywhere. That's the wrong size. Second thing I want to do is get this up a little higher in the back and get that tank out. Regardless of whether we can use this tank or whether I replace it, I want to get it out, have a look at the sender. So we'll jack this guy up. It doesn't look great. It's got a bit of damage on that side. So, and as I said, I know I can get a new one, but if I don't have to, I won't. She's seen better days. That's the bracket holding him on. It's all bent and puckered. It's probably where the exhaust folded up under it. And she looks like she's been through the paddock a few times, dragging its butt. So I can't see us using this one. Oh no, I definitely can't see us using this one. That's some sort of repair that's been wiped onto it, but it's leaking again. So I've got 1, 2, 3 repairs and dented like hell. And all they're held in by, it looks like it's just that guy there. Undo him, the sender, and that's at the front. We'll undo these lines, a couple of wires, and drop him down and see what evil it conceals. There's all seen me fight with tanks every once in a while, but I think this one, I gotta pick my battles, and I choose not to fight with this one. She's done. Old repairs, and she's hit the ground a few times. Out of curiosity, I'm gonna knock that sender out and just see what inside was like. I'll guarantee it's absolutely mint because it's bashed up on the outside. But anyway, I called it. Look at that. It's near perfect. And have a look inside this tank. That is just cruel. that it is that good inside, and that's what it looks like on the outside. Kind of wish I didn't look. Tank's out, carby's soaking. It's time to stop avoiding the next bit, and that is strip down and get wet, get pressure clean. So let's do that. So that's my first run around, and I'll probably go around 3 times, because the first time you get a bit off and you soften it, but the second time, once it's softer, it comes off easier. But have a go at under here. It's still painted, no rust, and the frame rail's the same, really good. And that diff looks a hell of a lot smaller now that all the built up road grime and that's off it. It's all there. And I've got some plugs to remove here for when I start inside, but she's pretty good, like really good. And I'm not really sure how many hornet's nests I've come across, but I can tell you it was all of them. All the hornet's nests, they were everywhere, and that's them on the ground. The front suspension's obviously been greased and the dirt's just stuck to it. I'm sort of chiseling through that, trying to chisel away at this. But I mean, look at that frame rail, it's still really good nick. And even on the engine block, thick dirt. It's obviously had an oil leak on this side somewhere, maybe from the rocket cover or something. Let's just run down the block, and all the dirt sticks to the block. Then the oil soaks up the dirt and the cycle continues until it gets that thick. I've degreased underneath again, and while I'm just letting that settle in, I'm going to start on the insides of the doors and that, and just go around in with a green Scotch-Brite, degrease all in here, and then just scotch it all down to clean it. Inside the doors I'm going to do, I'm not worried about trying to keep water out of the inside of the doors. I'm going to get everything out, because it's not the water that rusts it, it's the dirt that holds the moisture that rusts them. So I'm going to take this one opportunity to get these completely clean. I mean inside as well. Yeah, I know, I'm going to need floors, but all that dirt, all that dust, I'm going to pressure clean the whole lot. Even the steering wheel and that sort of thing. And the boot, I'll smash it as well. Just hammer it. It'll all get away. And there's, like I showed you from underneath, there's plugs for the quarter panel, so I'll pressure clean all the dirt from in there. If it can't hold moisture, it can't rust. And once he's all dry, I'll just fish oil him. And this is what I'm talking about. Have a look at this. The water is not your issue. I just pulled that drain plug. That's your issue. Doesn't matter if the water gets in there, as long as it can get away. And there's a drain hole there for the water to get away. But when it's held by, that's up to there. What's that, 30 mil of dirt? When it's held in there by that much dirt, there is no way that's getting away. So that moisture turns into rust real quick. And I mean, yeah, look, that's the one place she started. And there. Oh well, we'll right that wrong now. We'll start getting him cleaned out. And just to give you an idea what the Scotch-Brite is actually going to do, see all those little rust stains and things like that? Just going around giving him a good scrub. You see all the little stains, you can still see the dirty bubbles, but the stains are disappearing. The same with there. just the whole thing. Just going to clean it all up, just to get rid of all those rust stains. Big difference just from Scotch Brighting it, and that for me will be good enough to get him back on the road. So I wasn't far wrong. I said that would be a full day on the pressure cleaner, and that was pretty much all day. But it is those days where you may as well do it once. I've pressure cleaned everywhere, and to be honest, I won't pull him down off the jacks just yet, because I'm going to give him another quick go in the morning. I've soaked the transmission and the engine down in degreaser. Those days where you do feel like you've gone hard, and it does look different inside but not so much on the outside, but I like to give myself just a little kicker. And today wasn't too bad in the fact that while I was doing that, parts were turning up. Fuel pump turned up, carburetor kit turned up, and the little kicker I want to give myself this afternoon is the tyres turned up. So I quickly zipped them across, had them fitted, and I'm going to chuck them on as a bit of an end of day celebration. So anyway, we'll get them on. What do I just try and do? Spin the nut the wrong way. It feels weird to do it, but... And I labelled my bag so I didn't cock it up. I wanted to keep them kind of stock, you know. On the back we've got a 205 75 14, and on the front I've gone a bit smaller with a 175 75 14. And I'm one nut shy. I only had 4 on this front tyre when I got it. And a left-hand thread Valiant stud isn't, a Valiant nut isn't something I'm going to rummage around in my shed and find, so I'll have to chase one up. As I say, I'm not going to drop it down now because I've got a little bit more to do in the morning. I want to see that gap close up when we drop him down on his suspension. Obviously the suspension is hanging there at the minute, but the back probably won't change that much because that is under the diff. Anyway, we'll see. Sometimes you just got to sit and stare for a minute. Just take it all in. So we've got a fair few things crossed off today. Water pump, water neck. No, water pump didn't show up. Water neck and fuel pump. So we're still waiting on water pump, rocket cover gasket and starter. I got brake fluid, but we've got to add one left-hand wheel nut and a boot rubber. It just disintegrated, so a boot rubber. But I think we'll go further with that anyway. The front and rear screen rubbers are that bad that, yeah, I'm gonna put pans in it and see it and carpet and all the rest of it, but if I don't do those rubbers it's gonna leak, so it sort of defeats the purpose. So we will end up doing a front and rear screen rubber, I would imagine. But the list aside, tomorrow's probably the day that I'm looking forward to most. Yes, I'm going to do a little bit more pressure cleaning, but I'm going to get into the outside and cleaning down the inside of those doors with the Scotch-Brite just shows you how it's going to change the appearance of the car. Inside the doors now look really good, and once that's dry, I guess I can start throwing trims and everything back in. We're starting to go back together. I'm not sure if I'm going to go with hubcaps. There was 2 different styles of hubcaps and all 4 of them are equally shitty. They're very dented, so I don't necessarily hate just the stock wheels. I didn't want to go spending a ton on wheels and tyres on this guy just in case this motor's no good, because if the motor's no good and I decided, well, got to swap a motor, do you upgrade it? Or if you upgrade it to something else, or even just a better 225, do you then go brake package and then stud pattern changes? So the wheels cost me nothing. You saw us, we just pulled them apart, sand them down, paint them with some white I had here, and the tyres, they're not expensive. So anyway, old timers coming along. That might do us for today. See you in the morning. I know I said this morning we're straight back into pressure cleaning, but I'm going to press pause on the getting wet for the minute because it's fairly fresh. So I got the old bench out in the sun. And we're going to get stuck into this carburetor while the place warms up a little bit. It's got a bit of a scrubber in the old drill. It's going to give the body a bit of a... Alright, let's start getting something apart. That's pretty bloody clean. I reckon the last time this thing was ran, it was ran with leaded fuel, because modern fuel, when it evaporates, it just turns to shit. I mean, if I can get the sun in there, that's really quite clean. There's a little bit of something there and there, but other than that, that's pretty good. I've seen a lot worse. Some full bowl screws, a little float divider. What's that's all about? 5/8 you idiot. There's our little needle in the seat. The one thing I will say, I bet you they ran it out of fuel, because there's not a trace of varnishy, shitty fuel anywhere through there. Somewhere there's going to be an idle circuit that I need to blow out, because it clearly wasn't going to idle, but I mean, I only really just got it to run. I didn't really give it a chance to idle. Just kept stalling out the minute I stopped throttling it on. So hopefully that's all we've got to clean out. An idle circuit. I'll turn my back here in a minute. The wind will pick up and blow all that all over the yard. Make for an interesting afternoon. So that's him, all back together, and that can be fairly rewarding, that sort of stuff, if you're rebuilding shit yourself. But it can also be soul destroying if you've put it back 3 or 4 times and it still doesn't run, and whichever. So let's see which this one is. That's better. There's a vacuum line there. It's a vacuum advance. I didn't remember finding a hose. So she's without a hose. Well, that's not going to work. It's got to have one of them. Oh, hang on. Found it on there. Gasket for there. So like that. So you put the fuel line on, fill the bowl that way. Vacuum line's on. That one's on. There's no reason we can't start it. and just see now for the idle. Although I've got a new starter coming. I don't want that one to run out of starts just yet, but I guess if it does, we haven't lost anything. So let's see if it can just start one more time. Come on, starter. I'll put him up high so we can fill him. So our battery should be well and truly charged. I've had it on charge since we ran it. Come on, I promise you. Starter will be here soon. Just one more. So that starter motor is officially empty. It is completely run out of starts. I may as well put off, regardless of whether the new one turns up, or we could probably have a quick look at that one. It's got to come off anyway at some stage, so I may as well pull it off. Oh, because I really want to run this thing just a couple of minutes, just to heat the oil, drop the oil. Let's get it off. And just pretty easy to get at. It's literally only your wiring at the front here, and then 1, 2 bolts. Well, I hope there's not a third that you got to go in behind there, but it looks like it's only a stud there with a nut on it and a bolt at the top. So it's just pretty easy to access. So we'll just knock it out, maybe have a quick look. So I've dug a bit deeper and I had to take the starter apart because it's now developed an issue where it's spinning and the solenoid's engaging, but the gear is just freewheeling both ways. So there's a little gear inside there that locks up when that shaft spins one way. It allows that to lock up and engage the starter, but it also allows it to freewheel back the other way, and I'll show you on this one. So if you see on this guy, if I hold that bearing there, that's locked together, but if I go this way, it freewheels. That's so when it spins that way, it locks into the motor, starts the motor, but as the motor starts turning faster than this gear can deal with, or faster than the starter motor, it allows it to freewheel so it's not doing damage. Well, that's not happening. That's not happening here. So that's everything's jumping out the way it should be now that solenoid's engaging, but absolutely nothing going on there. So whatever's in there has collapsed and disintegrated. I'm going to make a couple of calls, see how far away my starter is, but for now what I think is I'll drop him off the jack stands, get him out in the yard, and we might even start working on Scotch Brighting this outside. So a bit of a slack one this afternoon. Not really a slack one, but I did relax a little bit. With all the starter issues, I ring up about my starter, it could be weeks away. So the only other alternative, I ring a Valiant tragic mate of mine. So have you got a 6-cylinder starter? Brings down a heap of parts. We've now pieced one together that we think will work. So I have put the starter on. I'm going to try and fill this bowl and give it a crack. If I can warm this up even for a minute, because remember we've got no water pump. It's got water in it, but it's got no water pump to pump it around. So if I can fill this bowl and get it to run for even a couple of minutes, I'm going to drop the oil. Alright, let's see how we go. Do better than that. Surely you can do better than that. Hopefully that line's full as well. See if I can get it to run a bit longer. Still a bit shaky, so I'm thinking it's on 5-ish. You can just see it's not overly happy, and I'll probably run out of fuel soon, so that'll be enough to get the oil warm. I'll get a new filter on it, dump that oil out, and that'll do me for today, I think. Although the 225 Slant lives. Righto, fuel pump in the morning. I don't have a water pump, so I won't run him too long. That's enough to get the oil warm at least. So I'll get him out right here where he sits, rather than dragging around, because tomorrow I'll get back into that that side, scotch riding the patina. I'm going to try and not kill me grass here. Probably shouldn't have said I had a slack afternoon. I actually had a great afternoon. Isn't that what it's all about? In a certain way. A couple of beers with a mate, hanging around shitbox cars. I can think of worse ways to spend your day. Righto. So she's got a bit of fresh oil in her. Now, I'll see you in the morning. So this morning we're going to finish on our patina. Finish scotch brighting all down the side here, and you can see what I'm trying to get off is that oxidization. You can see where I've just rubbed it there, and I'm just using a household green Scotch Brite. It's not an automotive Scotch Brite. You get it from Coles or Woolies, and it's fine enough not to do any damage, but it'll take that oxidization off. If we look at the other side where we did yesterday afternoon, you'll see there it just cleans it up, takes the oxidization off, and especially on the rougher patches. But I've changed my mind a couple of times on this one. What I'm actually going to do is, from the waste mold down, I'm actually going to hit it with 1500 sandpaper and try and buff it, because the paint isn't that bad. I actually think I could just buff that up, and then everything from the waste mold up, including the bonnet, boot and roof, I'm going to boiled linseed it to try and get some shine out of that as well. Sure, there's really shitty bits here which I probably won't run the buff over. The difficult bit with the buff is all your compound gets stuck in the coarse patina cracks and scratches, so I'm probably going to limit it to to that panel back, and then maybe just blend it into the front here, and then boiled linseed the front. And as I said, all the top sections that are quite rough, you'll see how it's quite coarse. So where I've cleaned up the Scotch-Brite, you still run your hand over it and you can just feel little lumps and bumps. It's not perfectly smooth, and it doesn't need to be, it's patina, but going over it with 1500 will just knock down those few lumps and bumps, and I should be able to buff it up to a nice shine. As I said, the downside is you've got to get your compound out of all these little scratches and bumps, but hopefully the pressure cleaner will just, you know, drag it out. The 1500's that fine, it'll cut the top and clean the surface off, but it won't leave behind coarse scratches. They'll only be really fine, and so they don't take much buffing, so you're not having to really rip into the surface and buff hell out of it. Probably doesn't look much different, but it'll just make it buff up so much simpler. Right, I'll try and use that reflection to show you what I mean, but if you see, you can still see the scratches and coarseness of that section there, but as you move into where I've sanded, see it's much finer and smoother. That'll buff up very, very quickly, so you're not taking a lot of paint away. It'll almost just polish up, really. See how that's still kind of coarse? And then you move into that. Righto, so enough talking. I'll finish scotching down that far side, run back through the middle here with 1500, and we'll get on the buff. I guess the reason I even bother Scotch-Briting first, if I'm going to sand it with paper, is with your Scotch-Brite, if they've been sitting that long, the screens need Scotch-Briting, the trims need Scotch-Briting. Just do it all these little rust stains, get all them first. Go over your stainless or your chrome. Clean it all up as you go. So if you finished your 1500 fine sanding, and you'll see I'll do a little patch there. It's just a regular Ferrecla compound and just some water just to keep it moist. General rule of thumb is don't buff in direct sunlight because it's a bit hot, dries everything out. But anyway, I'm just doing it here, and then just, you see that section there, it's actually buffing up quite shiny. So, and then just boiled linseed the top, like I said, but we'll get to that, and I'll show you on the other side how it's coming up, because I'm actually half done. I've already done this side, and if you can see, that's the original paint. Right up till we get to the patina section, you can see their old repair here where it's very shitty, but it's glossy right into that, and then we'll just boil linseed through there. So with all my paintwork buffed up, and I haven't boiled linseeded the top panels yet, I'm going to leave that for a minute, but I'm still waiting on this water pump. So we'll get all of this off, and I've got 1 day left. If it doesn't show up tomorrow, I've got to go back to work, so we won't think about it. We'll just get everything off ready, so if it turns up, I can slap it on. And I can't stress enough, if you're taking bolts out like this and that's corroded, heat them. So I did have a thermostat Not anymore. I thought that hole was good. It's remarkably clean in there, you know, compared to that. Oh, when I get this pump off, I'll show you that, but I just went to pull the hose off the pump and the end broke off the pump. That's how corroded it is. Get that fair up ya. Well, it still had some water in it. That's a good sign as far as I'm concerned. But what do you reckon of that? That is the neck off the water pump plus some other shit balled up as more shit. That's dead set solid. Could have been a blessing, because if that didn't have a hole in it and I didn't see that crack and we'd have ran it like that, could have got ugly, could have got really, really ugly, you know, uglier. Oh, don't do that, don't strip the end of it. I got cocky, I went for the ratchet spanner too soon. I got him, I had my doubts, I thought that one was going to strip off, whether it be the head or snap off. What was that noise when we were firing it? I have to get one of them too, although it didn't need a plug. She plugged right up. I'm going to try and flush a bit of the shit out. It's flowing pretty well. I'm starting to lower my expectations a little on this cooling system at least. So that's probably it for today. We're all cleaned up, all wire wheeled down and ready for that water pump. The stupid thing is that the tracking is saying it's here. So first thing in the morning, I'm going to zip up to the post office and just make sure I can catch it before they start doing the rounds. Otherwise I won't get it till lunchtime. And I think I'm becoming a 225 fan. As bad as that was, that is corroded solid, and that water neck corroded through. When I unbolted everything, the surfaces they were bolted to are really thick cast and nothing's corroded and they're very robust. It just is that it? Valiant guys and girls, was that it? Is that why they were considered bulletproof? Big day hand sanding, buffing, back on the pressure cleaner, but kind of liking a shine. And I'll get onto the boiled linseed on the front of the car once we worry about running it. I'll see you in the morning. So good news, the water pump's here, and while I was waiting for the post office to open, I didn't sit on my ass. Instead I fitted the new fuel pump and, you know, a new fuel tank, well, drink bottle, a new water neck, and I've already fitted the pump. So we're literally ready now to fire that thing up and just see if we can get some heat in it and get that last cylinder. This will be the last time I've got to do that, because hopefully that'll pick up fuel pretty quickly. Still got that little shake, that idle, that's still running on 5. If I can just let it keep going until that choke comes on and idle down, hopefully get a bit of heat and start to wake it up. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have just left it. Why don't you just leave it, Michael? Quite idling high enough when the choke's off, but that might give me a chance to refill that bottle. I was trying to refill it as it ran, but it was beating me. I wasn't getting enough into it. I might let that sit and just soak a bit of heat up. So my makeshift fuel tank is topped up, and I'm thinking what better way to get some heat in it and try and wake that cylinder up than to drive it. So I've chucked the seat in, and at the minute it's still got no clutch and no brakes, but we'll see. I might be able to start it in reverse down the hill, because the starter's not going to like trying to come up the hill, and see if I can't reverse it round onto the slope there and then do the same in forward, and just get on and off that throttle and try and break that clutch loose, because it's stuck disengaged, so it will start and move as long as that starter's strong enough. All right, let's have a go. So like I say, that clutch is on the floor. I could pull the pedal up, but it sort of made no difference, and that brake pedal goes to the floor. But if I put it in reverse, oh, nearly, geez, that was violent though. Well, we're going backwards. Probably a little bit faster than I'd like. We'll just get it on this hill and turn it off. That's neutral first. Oh, the charge just volts has come good and the temp's working. There you go. Speedo working? I think the speedo's working. Build the revs up, I can actually hear that cylinder wanting to come in. There's a little backfire. He wants to go. And the only thing I can really put that down to, your shadow's in the way, you moron. You know, what do you call it? It was some good, a little bit. Start again, because you're talking like a fuckhead. What the hell? Did you hear that? I just turned the camera on, it goes beep beep beep. There's a bird just mimicked the beeping. I'm going to turn me back here in a minute, the bird's going to be humping the GoPro. Geez, could you shake anymore? Far out, that was terrible. Why are you laughing? It turned over. Probably have to edit that bit out. I'm fumbling around. It's freezing. My hands are so cold. Seriously, what are you laughing about? I don't know what the birds are singing about. Probably because they survived the night. Hey, we made it. We made it through another night. I think I fed this. That'll be right. I couldn't even get my right hand to work then. So that drove. I'm not saying it drove well, but I'm going to take the win. Only 2 weeks ago, that thing was sitting in a paddock rotting away. And that took 5 solid days, but totally worth it. Next time you see the Val, we've got a big parts list. We've got fuel tank, floor pans, and a lot of other stuff to come. And we're going to address this ride height. I want him down a bit lower than that. It's got a hint of cool there, but I think we can still go further with it. Anyhow, thanks for sticking around. See you next time, and thanks for watching.